So let's go into the next session, Retail AI, recommender system on RBFA with Cyril and Matteo.
Thanks a lot. So my presentation today with Matteo will talk about Retail AI and how it helps you build recommender systems that are modern and in production. Actually, it's called Retail AI, but it does not only apply to retail, that can be applied to any business. This is the agenda for today. So first we'll go over what is Retail AI and why it could apply to any business. Then we'll have a part from Matteo that will explain why are recommender systems so vital for the RBFA. And then we'll deep dive into a CDP and how it integrates with Retail AI. So first, what is Retail AI? Why would a company need artificial intelligence? Who would ask that question? And then what are the main available features? So what is Retail AI? Actually, it's what we call recommendations and search AI. So it helps you do recommendations and search, two very similar tasks in ML. So if you see a typical shopping website like this, it goes from the search bar where you can search for products. It goes from having a list of different products that can go for being personalized for you, so what you like as an individual, or search terms that you have put in the search bar. But also you have some paid product listings, you have recommendations, similar products. So basically anything that is a recommendation. Why did I say that this does not only apply to retail? Because actually you can see a lot of things as a recommendation system. And well, first, the RBFA, it's not a retail company. Well, they do have a web shop, but that's not the only thing that they do. One of the things that they do is they have content on their website, and so they publish articles, they publish news, and so recommending those news to people so that they are actually interested in the stories that they read. That's also a recommender system. And so it could basically apply to, well, any business. Maybe you process technical documents and then you want your technicians to actually get recommended technical content so that they can read stuff. We also have internal stories about recommending courses to students, so that can be very broad. But first, let me go over some numbers. I'm sorry, those will be one of the only numbers that I will share, but basically, it's really important for you to have good recommendations because most people actually quit your website and never go back again if they have a bad search experience. So having a good recommender system is really at interest for many businesses. There are some official numbers. Basically, you lose a lot of money if you don't have a good recommendation system. Google, again, it's not a retail company, but it has many applications that are based on recommendations and search. And so recommendation AI that I will present today with Matteo is the tools and represent all the tools that actually Google uses on a daily basis. And so you can, on your website or in your business, have the same power of the search engine from Google and the recommendations that they have. We have a few use cases that are not only retail. If you think about the videos for YouTube, you're getting recommended content. So yeah, it's not only about retail. So it's not only about cutting downsides or loss of revenues. It's actually a recommender system is a tool that you can enable so that people are more interested in the things that you present them. It's not only about losing those users, it's about creating value for them, because if they see something they're more interested in, they're more likely to interact with your business. And now I will pass the floor to Matteo, who will explain the data strategy of the RBFA and why it's important as a business to go for a nice data strategy, but also for recommender systems.
Thanks, Cyril. So my name is Matteo Balhão. I work at the RBFA since 2019, where I'm responsible for everything that is related to data strategy, data analytics. And my position is a bit in between IT and the business to make sure that we know what we are capable of, but also to make sure that we are using those things. So as a football federation, we have been reinventing ourselves in 2019. We have been known as the Ministry of Football for quite some time, and that is something we want to get rid of. And that's why we came up with a new strategy. Now, as a football federation, we have 3 different objectives. We are like a football club. We need to make sure that we get fans to our national team games, that we sell tickets, that we sell shirts, that we make sure that people are informed about the national teams. So everything a normal football club does as well. But on the other side, we're also responsible for developing and promoting football in Belgium. And there we get in touch with a lot of people, as you can see on this slide. Now, in our new strategy that we came up with since 2020, we wanted to grow football. We also wanted to work on this modern culture. Then we need to make sure that we adapt to the new reality, making digital at the center of our way, how we are working. And then, of course, we also need more money. We are not we are not a company that is searching for profit. We are a non-for-profit. So every euro that we make, we are reinvesting again in football. But to make sure that we can do all those things for all the people involved, we need to make sure that we get the money in. And in order to do that, we leverage 3 elements. Our data, I will show some use cases, all the digital platforms that we have where we interact with all the people, and then of course the content that we're creating where we can also put the sponsors inside to make sure that they get the visibility that they're looking for. Now, as a football federation, we are playing not that many games. A club, they play games all the time, so they are always on. That is quite a challenge for us. We only play like once in 2 or 3 months, and we need to make sure that we get the engagement cycle going. And we can do that by posting content before, after, and during match days and increasing the amount. But also in the lower periods, we try to share content that keep the people engaged with us. Next to that, we also have different events that we can leverage, such as talent detection days and so on, to make sure that we always keep engaging our stakeholders and to be relevant at every moment of the year. Now, to do that, we have our digital application. And as you can see, we have a lot of assets, and not only the national teams, but also the fan club. We have a knowledge center. We have football pitches. We have the amateur football. We have the referees. So a lot of different elements related to football. And because we keep growing the assets that we have, we also increase the interest of people, the reach. More people give more engagement. And by that engagement, we are able to capture the data, make sure that we increase the engagement even more. And with that data, we are able to monetize what we're doing. So if you look at the application that we've built in a very, very high level, I'm not going too technical, but just giving some ideas of what has been underlying our way of thinking. Football is entertainment. People, they watch football to be entertained. And that is something that we wanted to take into account when building the application. We have been looking to Tomorrowland, Netflix, where everybody has his or her own personal starting page, which is really tailored to your interest. And then last but not least, people are able to track on Strava every single detail of their physical activity. So that is something that we also are having in our ambition in the future with the application we have. A little bit more the underlying technology. So we have built our data lake in BigQuery. We are using Firestore as a transactional database that is communicating with the application. And on top of that, we have a SaaS omnichannel communication tool where we can use all the data that we have for personalization, dynamic content blocks. We can do push notifications. We're also using Google Ad Manager and again the recommender engine to send the right advertisement from our sponsors to the people in the application. But I'll show some more of these use cases later on. What has been very important for us is the single sign-on. That has been a trouble in the past we could not identify ticket buyers that are at the same time amateur football players, by creating and step-by-step implementing the single sign-on from Okta, we're now able to connect the dots and to make sure that we know everything about a single person and give him or her the right service based on every aspect of his or her football life. So we have been starting with building the app in 2020. We started with bringing the first MVP to market in 2021. So there for us it was very important to make sure that we started with something that was already relevant enough to go to the market. It was linked to the Euro Cup, the Euro 2021. And then step by step, we keep improving the application, because we simply don't have the time to wait for a full product to go to the market. But the first MVP was already more than enough to start. And now we keep developing new and new applications there. Now, it is important to know that it's not only about IT. It's, again, as we heard already before, it's about communicating and to keeping people aligned. We have different regional federations that also have their own objectives. So we need to make sure that they're also involved in this story. We need to make sure that there is also governance with all the different stakeholders, so that everybody knows what is going to happen and that they feel involved in the process. So a few numbers. You can see here the number of app users that we have. Is there anybody here that knows what these peaks are standing for? No. Every weekend you see that the usage of the app is going up quite high. The reason is that all the amateur football players, they can find also their results, the results of the other teams in the application. So that is a very important reason for us to focus also on amateur football. Those are the people that drive the usage of the app. It's 500,000 people, which is quite a lot. There is no football club in Belgium that can reach that number in one single week. When you look at the World Cup numbers, we see an uptake of 20,000, which is quite a good number, because you have to know that a lot of the amateur football people, they are also following the national team. But on top of that, we could have another 20,000 unique users. If you know that you have a stadium of 40,000 fans, and on top of that, let's say 100,000 people following the Red Devils on a quite intensive base is already a high number, then you can see that we really realized the numbers that we wanted to realize with the application. But again, it shows why amateur football is so important to us, not only the Devils and the Flames. So for us, it was very clear that we need to balance very well grassroots, so amateur football activities, and the national team activities, and that you need to grow the app on all the different levels at the same time. So you can build a fantastic app, but if you have no content to fill it, then you're wasting your time and your money on something that you could have postponed to do something else which is more urgent first. Now, when it comes to our data strategy, we see that data for us has 5 very important benefits. And I'm not going to go too much into detail, because I think you all know these things, but it helps us to give better services and better products, as Cyril already explained. It also allows us to understand all those stakeholders much better. We can take better decisions internally and externally, manage our own business processes better, and we're also able to make some money out of the data that we have. Now, a few examples that you probably would like to see here. First of all, it's the omnichannel communication. And it's also recommending the right content. When you are an amateur player, then you want to know the organizational stuff. When is my next match? What are the new rules? But if you're a fan of the Red Devils, then you probably on top want to see who will be the players for the next selection or the next match of the national team. So based on your behavior in the app, we know all this, and we can use that through the recommender engine to bring the right content on top. Next of that, it is important to know that we also pay a lot of attention to GDPR. We make sure that the people give their consent so that we can use their data. Otherwise, they won't trust us and they won't come back. So we really need to show them why we use it, why it's to their benefit, and then they trust us and we can do what we want to do. Also, recommending the right products. Some people are interested in buying tickets. Other people, they prefer football shirts. For instance, a colleague of mine, he plays amateur football, always with the number 8. When we know that data from our competition database, we can suggest the national team shirt with his preferred number. Or if he already bought the shirt, we can suggest the shorts, and preferably also in the size that he normally buys the shirts in. Or maybe at one day you will stop playing football. Then it could be interesting to know what you're interested in as a next role. Maybe you want to become a coach or a referee, or you want to get into football governance. If we know that, again, based on your behavior, we can detect the most plausible moment of you stopping as a player and then suggest courses to become the next role that you would like. We already mentioned a few times the efficient advertisement. Again, there, based on the content tags that you like, we can send the right advertisement, and also we can do personalization based on the PII info that we have, so that our sponsors, they can say, okay, we want to target this specific audience in the football environment. For instance, men of 45-year-old, they get another one than female girls 18 years old, so that we can deliver the advertisements that are requested by our sponsors, and they are willing to pay a lot more in the sponsorships because of these capabilities. And then I give the floor back to Cyril.
Thanks a lot. So I think we highlighted a lot what's the value of recommender systems in production. What I will try to convey now is that we talk a lot about artificial intelligence. It's the high buzzword that we use day to day. I think the good thing that we'll see today across all technologies, especially in artificial intelligence, is that we try to make the technology more accessible. What I will show there are the requirements to actually implement a recommender system in production. You will see that it does not take a lot of effort. It does not take a lot of human resources. It does not take a lot of money or data preparation. So yeah, let's deep dive into retail AI, or more specifically recommendations AI, sorry. How complex is it? Well, basically, Google has created one single point, one API, where you just push your products and your customer data, so their interactions with your website, into the same API. And then Google has multiple technologies that they combined into that API to actually create those recommendations, those powerful recommendations. You have a lot of things. Most of them are a bit technical, so I will not go over them. But basically, those are all the technologies that Google has created to make your life simpler. Then once you have ingested all that data inside that same API, that single API, you can actually take advantage of a lot of features that can go from text search to recommendations, but also image search and voice search, which is quite convenient. How do you do that practically? Well, here is the architecture diagram of recommendations AI. I will again not deep dive into the full architecture diagram. What's important for you to realize is that if you look at the boxes, you mostly know all of those products. You have Bigtable, you have a BigQuery import, a spanner, you have the ranking serving service that is also available in Google. So all of those are actually Google products that exist from 10 years ago. The only thing that changed is that Google made a convenient interface for you to interact with recommendations AI. All those products individually worked well and already did some proofs at customers. So there's nothing that was reinvented. The wheel was not reinvented. You just have a simpler interface. So now it's actually important for you to realize, again, is that, well, first thing that will come up in your to-do list is data ingestion. How do I put my data into recommendations AI so that I can take advantage of all the features? Then you actually have a lot of business controls. It's also important, just like Matteo explained, it's important for you to have controls about events or matches that you know will come up, because then you will put some products on the spotlight. For example, if you know you have a World Cup, then you will probably have the local teams t-shirts put more in advance compared to other teams in your web shop. Then you actually have some features that are also nice. So preview the results. It's good because then you can actually ensure and tweak the parameters and ensure that the results actually make sense compared to what you expected it to output. And then you also have some monitoring and analytics features that are great because, well, you want to know how your recommender system is performing compared to, well, actually your previous recommender system. So either you had a legacy solution and you want to compare the performance A/B test, or you want to compare a version A against a version B. And now what I will actually show is that you have your product catalog. So everything that is about your products, if you're a retail business, that can be t-shirts, shirts, that can be ads. So whatever you imagine you want to recommend, this is the product catalog. Then you have customer data. Customer data is not necessarily PII. Well, you do not want to process PIIs because you do not want to identify people, but those are informations about clicks, what users liked, what users viewed, what users ordered, and all those kind of stuff. And the good thing is that, well, of course, you have an API to have this product catalog inside of Recommendations AI, same for the customer data. But if you're using any of those existing products, Google products, you can actually have a native ingestion of all your data inside of Recommendations AI and use it tomorrow. So if you're using Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics, which I think many businesses do, you can directly use product catalog and customer data through Recommendations AI to have recommendations on your website or product, or internally if you want to have a knowledge base. So very easy integration. And now I'm very lucky because my data colleague actually explained this before. So this was the traditional way of doing data. It was actually harder because then if you have third-party tools, you don't really know where your source of truth is. The good news is that now with the reverse ETL, you can have one single source of truth that is tightly integrated with Recommendations AI. And so as you have seen, the single point, the single API that you have to interact with tightly integrates into that picture, and so you do not have problems of where does my data live, and also everything about data governance, so making sure that the correct people have access to the correct data, and making sure that you do not have leaks. That's very important. Also with consent that Matteo explained, it's very important to explain your users what you will use their data for, and to actually make sure that you will comply with that, because otherwise they would get mad, and it's their right. And so again, Recommendations AI, as I highlighted and as Matteo explained for the RBFA, is a key critical product in their business. It brings a lot of value into companies with big names. You see Macy's, you see IKEA, you see Nordstrom. It's really important for you to realize that AI is not something that you can do on top. It's something that is getting more and more democratized, and you can only interact with a few APIs and see the results. And then if the performance evaluation is better, then you can switch to the product. If it's worse, well, then you just clicked on a button to integrate with Google Analytics. I think that the cost is quite low for the value that you could get. On that note, I thank you a lot for your attention. Matteo, thanks again for presenting today with me. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot. Yes.
Thank you for this. So I think we can safely assume that the amount of traffic that Carrefour has is a lot more than RTBF. So the question is limited amount of data that RTBF, the Football Association has, is that a limitation to the recommendation system? And at what point would you consider, okay, you just don't have enough data, it doesn't make any point to create a recommendation system?
That's actually a very good question. There are precise guidelines on when you should use our recommender system, such as Recommendations AI or not. It really depends on your users and the frequency that they use your application. For example, you may have 1 million users that just go once a month on your app, then you don't have a lot of data. Whereas you can have 10,000 people that interact very a lot on your app, and then you have really a ton of data that you can infer on. So it really depends. There is no magical equation to determine whether or not it's worth. What I would say is also something that I try to explain is that Recommendations AI tries to make AI more accessible. And so it's really, you have to integrate with one API. If you're using one of the native integrations, then you can just click on a button and then it will directly integrate and see the results, the performance metrics of your recommender system. So it's really low cost for you to actually experiment and try out the solution. And then, well, if the performance metric is not as you expected to be, then, well, you just lost one click. If not, then you gain a lot of business value. So again, there are some recommendations, but it really depends on your users, your data, your interactions. But the value you get, I think, is way higher than the investment effort you're actually doing.